Hello, my name is Tyrone. Today, I'm going to show you a website called KeySentinel. In my day-to-day life, whenever I think of building a project, I always think to use an API key. But every time I think of use an API key, I appear in my mind that it might be used for malicious activities. So me and my friend had an idea to build a website, KeySentinel, which protects our API keys. Now I'll go to my dashboard. Dashboard will show the active keys, the request, the success rate, and alerts. Now I'll add a key. Testing. Gemini. Email. E. Rate limit 2. Trust rate will keep same. And I'll add a key. When I add a key, I got a separate website key which we generated, a central key. By using this key, it protects the people from using the real key, so that whenever some suspicious activities are reported, it will revoke the access and will keep the API keeps safe. Here is a graph of the various API keys which are used and total requests used every week.
Everyone, this is Asen, and I'll be explaining the app architecture. So in the front end, we have the option to enter the API key. For example, let's say Gemini API key to access the Gemini Flash API. So what we do generally is we use an external app wherein we need some API access like Gemini API. We directly call the Gemini API through the Gemini official API call. So in this application, we have done rerouting of this request. So instead of directly calling the Gemini API, we are rerouting it through a Vercel API route. So I'll go through the step by step. In the front end, we have the option to enter an API key. So this API key, which is then stored in the Convex database. In return, we are giving them an app key, which is then returned and show displayed in the front end. Now, if, for example, an external app, instead of using the official Gemini key, they can use the app key, which will then route their request through Vercel API route, which we have set up in Vercel. So then this Vercel API route, what it does is it sends an app key to the Convex database, which is then returning the mapped app actual API key. So it returns the actual API key. So using that, we can access the Gemini 2.5 Flash. So using this, we can track various metrics like frequency of requests and many other things, suspicious activity and any other things. So using this tracking method, we can also send them reminders to the emails, like usage reminders. Like let's say if the requests go above a certain limit, so it will send a reminder in the email. Now I'll explain the tables which we have created for that. We have the API keys table where we store the API keys, the time at which it was created at, the description the user wishes to enter, the email column wherein we store the email of the user if the user wants any emails to be sent, like reminders, the last email sent timing, the last use timing, the name of the API key which the user sets, the provider, the rate limit wherein we store like if the API key requests go above a certain rate limit, we will send them an email reminder, the scope, the status whether it is active or inactive, the trusted people, whether who are the trusted people, and the user ID and the creation time. Next, I'll be explaining the app key table. So this app key table is triggered whenever a new API key is generated. So whenever you enter a new API key in the front end, a corresponding app key is given generated for that. I'll be explaining the functions which do this later. Now the columns which we have is the ID, unique ID, the time at which it was created at, the maps to key. So using this, we map out the Sentinel key, which means the app key, to the actual API key. So this column has having the user, the API key ID, basically this ID, this column. So this is the primary key column, and this is a foreign key column. So we trace the actual key related to this particular key or whichever key which we have in this table. So, and the time at which it was created. Other tables we have are the recovery links and the trusted people table. Now we explain the functions which we have set up. So for adding new API keys, we have kept the add API key function. For getting API key and displaying in the front end, we have kept the get API key. For fetching API key by Sentinel key. So now this function we have set up for the Vercel API route call. So whenever Vercel, we send a request to Vercel, we get the actual API key from the Sentinel key. So using Sentinel key, we're getting the actual API key in Vercel. So using this, we can reroute the request. Then log API key usage, meaning we log like store the usage of the API key like requests, how many requests were sent in a particular period of time. The add Sentinel key is for adding Sentinel keys, meaning the app keys, each and every time a new entry was created in the API key table. And the trusted person for adding trusted people. And this is the function which we have kept for sending emails. I'll be showing you the demonstration of the curl command. Using the curl command, we will test the Vercel API and also the email functionality. So if we go in the dashboard, scroll down to the latest one, API key, which we have created using Gemini. The Gemini is the API key, which will be there in the database. So Sentinel key, I'll just copy this. Demo is the name of the API key on the dashboard. Provider is Gemini. Rate limit I've kept as 1. and request is 0. So whenever it exceeds this rate limit, it will basically send an email to my Gmail account. I'll use curl for this. Now let's replace the Sentinel key. Yeah, copy, and we show you side by side. So currently the requests are 0. Once I enter this return is 1. Yes, it's 1. Let's try another request. Yeah, 2. So now the requests have exceeded rate limit. So it will send me an email saying your usage has reached 100% of the quota. Yeah, demo. So yeah, your API key demo has reached 100% of its rate limit. So this was sent just now. If I go to Convex Resend, I can see this emails. Yeah, demo has reached 100% of the request.